All right, it's 6:30, so we're going to get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ajax Public Library's program on learning how to be more productive, presented by Malcolm Gurley, president of MB BPI Incorporated. My name is Julia Campbell, and I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the Ajax Library. I just wanted to start by covering a couple of housekeeping items. This evening's presentation is being recorded, so I would ask that you please keep your webcam and microphones off so that you are not displayed in the recording. The camera and microphone icons can be found at the bottom left of your screen. We will have a Q&A portion after the presentation, at which point I'll stop the recording to protect everyone's privacy and so everyone feels comfortable to ask questions. And at that point, please feel free to unmute yourself and turn your camera back on if you wish to do so. The chat button is along the bottom if you have any questions or comments you would like to share. You have the option of chatting with everyone, or you can send a private message to me, Julia, or to Malcolm, our presenter. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, and we will do our best to get to them either during the presentation or at the end during the Q&A. If you experience any technical difficulties this evening, I recommend that you exit the Zoom program and re-enter. If you continue to have difficulties, please place a comment in the chat, and I will do my best to assist you. I think that covers the basics, but if anything else comes up, please don't hesitate to use the chat function. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Malcolm, the president of MB BPI Inc. and has over 35 years of experience in building out and implementing productivity improvement plans as a senior executive for Fortune 100 companies and privately held firms. His career includes international experience in the United States, Europe, India, and China. As a member of Leadership Management International Canada, industry leader, Malcolm works with business owners, corporate executives, and leaders in organizations to achieve success in specific high-impact areas. Malcolm is both a Six Sigma Black Belt and Lean Expert certified and has led many business transformations, resulting in significant business improvements to the top line and bottom line. Malcolm has lived in Ajax Pickering for over 30 years and is a member of the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade as a local business owner. We are very lucky to have him with us this evening, so without further ado, I will turn it over to Malcolm to begin his presentation.
Thank you very much, Julia. Very pleased to be here with all of you tonight, and I hope you have a pad of paper and a pen handy so that you can take some notes as we go through the presentation tonight. But it's going to be somewhat interactive. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. And if you have any specific questions as we go through, as Julia was saying, please enter them in the chat as we go, and we can stop if we need to. All right, let's go. So, as Julia was indicated, I'm the president of MG Business Process Improvement Inc. Based in Ajax, I've been here for over 30 years, and I'm a representative for Leadership Management International. And this is a company that's been in existence for 60 years in 80 countries, 28 languages, and let's go. Okay, workshop. What we're going to do, part one, we're going to talk about aspects of being successful. It's really important to understand if you're going to be productive, and you're obviously here at a workshop today to learn how to be more productive. It's all about being successful, and defining what success is to you is really important. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about effective goal setting and how to do that, and then time management, how to find the time to achieve the goals that you're setting. And at the end, we'll have a summary and wrap up and Q&A. All right, so a little bit about me. Interesting tidbits. I was born in the West Indies, although I've been in Canada for many years, and you may not detect an accent. Yes, I was born in the West Indies. My ancestors actually arrived in the 1700s, and they arrived in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Trinidad, and Tobago. I myself was born in Jamaica. My father had an opportunity, took it, and so I happened to be born there, but most of my family is in other parts of the West Indies. Now, interestingly enough, Columbus first arrived in 1492. So It has a rich history of people from all over the world. If you've ever been to the West Indies, it's a huge melting pot of people from everywhere you can imagine. Okay, 50 years in Canada for me, and 30 plus years in the Durham region here in Ajax. So a little bit more about me, and enough of that, let's keep going. Okay. I like to do a quick exercise. Grab a piece of paper and your pen, and what I'd like you to do is just list a critical issue you're facing, whether it's a personal thing or work related. Over the next 6 to 12 months, what would you say, what would you write down as that critical issue you're facing? And then the next thing is, what key goal would you like to achieve to address that critical issue? It can be business related or it can be personal. And, we're going to talk about your life's mission. What is it, your long-term life mission? What would it be? Now, if you've never really thought about that, okay, we may not have time today to get into it, but it's something you should ask yourself. If you struggle with that, let's go with a 5-year objective. What is it you want to achieve over 5 years? It really comes down to, what legacy do you want to leave in your life, business and personal? So write that up. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds here. Now, it should come to you pretty quickly. If you're really lost with this, you really need to, after this workshop, just sit back and really think about it. What is your life mission? Okay, let's keep going. All right, let's talk about aspects of being successful. This is from the Harvard Business Review on financial success. Now, I'm not going to talk about other areas of success. You can be successful in many areas, but let's talk financial. In orders of magnitude, 3% are considered extremely successful. The ultra rich, 10% very, very successful, 60% only moderately successful, and 27% not successful. And that's from the Harvard Business Review. Now, what makes some people successful and others not? Are they more intelligent? Perhaps. Better educated? Maybe. Harder working? Maybe. Generally speaking, no. Studies have come to the conclusion that the most common difference between successful and unsuccessful people really comes down to behavioral traits, how they behave, which gives them what I'm going to call the slight edge. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the slight edge as we go through. All right, 3 common traits of successful people. Number 1, focus. I talked about your life's mission, what you'd like to accomplish over, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months. That's focus. Okay, if you're not sure and you're in a cloud, you need to reevaluate, do you have focus? The next thing is self-motivation. The biggest motivator of all is self-motivation, and we'll talk more about that. And a positive can-do attitude. Okay, every day you try the best you can to be positive and move forward. We're going to talk more about that as well. All right, the slight edge. What am I talking about? Well, the differences between winning and losing can often come down to very small differences. Okay, and let's talk about that. Examples: horse racing. The horse that wins by a nose gets a much, much bigger prize package, and everyone remembers who wins the Kentucky Derby or Preakness or any of the other big horse races. That's the slight edge. A hockey team that wins by 1 goal in overtime and maybe goes on through the playoffs to the next round, or a firm which wins a contract by a few dollars. These are all examples of the slight edge, okay? And that's what can make a big difference between winning and losing. So finding your focus, let's get back to that. Ways to determine what you want and which should have priority. So you really should have a dream list, what it is that you want to accomplish in life. We're going to talk about the wheel of life shortly, and a most critical issues list. So get your dream list going. What are the most critical issues? What do you want to accomplish? And that's where you can find your focus. Now, I talked about the wheel of life. On the personal side on the left, these are, very typical of areas of life that you should ask yourself, are you spending enough time? Are you focusing enough on various aspects? So financial and career, it's your, retirement planning, buying a house, saving, whatever it might be. Mental and educational, obvious, but that is physical and health. Social and cultural, spiritual and ethical. Even if, let's say, you don't consider yourself to be religious, you can certainly be spiritual and ethical, and that is certainly something, an aspect you need to look at. And of course, family and home. On the organizational side, time management, productivity and profit, job knowledge and skills, public relations, methods improvement, and product development are examples. This side can actually change based on the type of organization that you work in. But really, when your personal and your organizational goals mesh, you maximize your potential for success in everything you do. So really, you need to have that work-life balance. And taking a look at what I've got on the screen here, you should ask yourself how you're doing in these various areas and reevaluate from time to time, just to make sure that you have the balance. And you may not be able to focus on everything. Pick a couple, all right, where you think you need to spend some time, and that will give you focus. All right, finding motivation. There's three different types of motivation. There's fear, where you have an external influence to drive that motivation. Problem with that is it's very short-lived. Incentive, again, it's an external influence, and that could be somebody giving you a bonus or whatever, or some sort of an incentive that you work towards. Problem is that doesn't really have a lasting effect. But self-motivation is an internal influence, and that is the biggest motivator of all. We need to deliberately motivate ourselves. It doesn't just happen. So, big lesson, think about this. You need to motivate yourself. All right, your attitude. Let's talk about attitude. On the left is 0 to 100% performance, and through the bottom axis, reactive thinkers and proactive thinkers. In other words, those that react to things and things happen to them. Proactive is those that take initiative and are positive in their attitude. So let's take a look at this. Reactive thinkers, they're resistant to change. I'm sure you've seen people like that. Find it difficult to choose and decide. They feel they have no control over their environment, suffer excess inner stress. They always want to do things right as opposed to doing things for results, and they get stuck in doing things to perfection or the way it's always been done. Those are reactive thinkers. Proactive thinkers, on the other hand, they have a can-do oriented attitude. They take responsibility for their actions. They think in terms of new possibilities, are current and future oriented. In other words, they work in the current. Every day is a new day, and they do what's important to get ahead with the future in mind. They have the vision of what they want to do. They have their life planned. They focus on the results they want, and they learn to grow from their mistakes. Everyone's going to encounter obstacles and mistakes. It's how you handle them that makes you a proactive thinker and a success in life. Proactive thinkers. All right. So attitude is everything. Attitude is the basis for success. And I'm just going to show you something here. The human brain, we have the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. The conscious mind is what you think, you do arithmetic, you react, whatever. The subconscious mind is something, it's like a memory bank that you just keep feeding information into, and they interact with each other. But the subconscious mind is things that you're processing things as maybe you're driving a car, you're not even thinking about what you're doing, but you're turning left and right. That's your subconscious mind instructing you as to what to do as you travel. Okay, but the subconscious mind is like a memory bank, and it guides you. Well, one of the problems with negative conditioning, to your subconscious mind, and many people fall into this trap of thinking negatively, is that when you do hard work, you end up with a feeling of fatigue, failure, discouragement, and then negative feedback then perpetuates back up to the subconscious mind. You get into this vicious circle. However, when you think positively and you feed your subconscious with positive conditioning, and what I'm talking about here is every day just thinking positively and feeding your mind with positives based on the vision that you want to achieve, what you want to do in life, things that you're going to do in the moment for that day, and thinking positively. When it translates to hard work, it's actually fun. You're energized, you're encouraged, you feel success. And then the positive feedback then encourages you to think even more positively, and you get into a rhythm. Now, any one of us on any given day can drift to the left, and you need to pull yourself over to the right and become more positive in your thinking. But certainly very important to think this way in order to get, again, the slight edge and to be successful in life. So very important. Some people do meditation to think positively every day. You can get into what are called affirmations, where you write out the way you want to be as though it is today. You write them out and live positively in your thoughts and behaviors. All right, so we talked about success. Let's talk about goal setting. Using goals to gain the slight edge. Now, goals provide us with the three attributes successful people have. We talked about focus, self-motivation, and positive attitude. So if you have proper goals and you abide by them and plan them and execute them, you will have success. So what do we need to know before we set goals? We need to know precisely what we want, and that gets back to what's your dream list, what's your mission in life, what do you want to do, what do you want to achieve over the next 6 to 12 months. Choosing the right goals. Okay, if you determine these goals based on your life mission, both business and personal, and is the operative word here, the goals need to support your mission, purpose, and long-term strategic direction. If a goal is achieved, you need to determine, what would be achieved by achieving the goal, and what would you avoid? What losses would you avoid? By thinking that through, it can really help you to say, yeah, this is the right goal for me. And when you set your goals, you need to know what you want. So fundamentals of goal setting: know where you are, determine where you want to go, what you want. It's important to know where you are and where you're going. Establish when you wish to get there. And I'm going to say this now, but write it out on a piece of paper. Don't just type it into a computer and it's lost in the file. Write it out on a piece of paper. Plan how you're going to do it. And then track your progress every day. If you're really serious about achieving goals and being productive, you really need to look at them every day and make sure you're tracking them. So SMART goals. You may have heard the term SMART, and S stands for specific. When you write out the goals, you've got to be specific. You can't be vague. We'll talk more about that. It's got to be measurable. So the worst goals possible are those that you can't measure, because you really don't know if you have success or not. So it's really important to be measurable. Find out how you can measure any particular goal that you're going to set, so that you can see the success that you're after. Attainable, time related. Don't set a goal that it's impossible to be attained within a particular time period, unless there's some roadblock that you can remove. So attainable is very important. Realistic. You need to believe. Realistic means that you need to believe it, that you really do think it's possible. It's realistic in your mind. And then finally, tangible. Can you touch it, taste it, smell it? Is it something that you can you can get your arms around, as opposed to something that's vague and fluffy. So that's what I'm referring to as a SMART goal. And the top one, specific, means what exactly are you going to do in clear terms. So here's an example of a SMART goal. By September 30th, 2021, increase clothing revenue sales in store number 10 by 10% when compared to the previous year. So it's specific, it's measurable, assuming that you have a way of measuring the sales revenue in the store number 10. It's attainable if you think that it's possible within that time frame, great. And realistic, do you believe in it? And tangible, yes, you can measure this because you've got measurement systems. All right, in this example. So goal planning approach. You need to state the SMART goal, determine target date for completion, state how the goal supports overall strategic objectives, list the benefits from achieving the goal and the losses to be avoided, list possible obstacles. What might you encounter, and if you did, what would you do as a possible solution? You got to think ahead. List action steps. Okay, what are you going to do? What's the step 1, 2, 3, and 4? And who's going to do them? It may not be you, it may be somebody else that you're working with, but certainly, what are the action steps and who's going to achieve them by when? Show this target dates and who owns. Who needs to know about the goal? Don't set a goal that, the right people that really need to know what's going on, that could help you achieve it, or could impact what they do. Make sure you reflect on who needs to know about the goal and communicate it. And then the method of tracking progress. What are you doing to track the progress? Because that's really important. What's the data to be tracked, and where do you find the data? Who's responsible for it? And then charting type. It's always good to see a chart of some sort to track your progress. If you can do that, great. Who tracks it? And then the baseline. If you're gonna do if you're gonna plan a goal and you know what you're going to achieve, what you'd like to achieve, you need a baseline. Where are you starting from in terms of your measurements, so that you can compare back? And then the interval for tracking, are you going to do it weekly, monthly, quarterly? How are you going to track your progress? Okay. If you cannot measure your progress, you can't manage it. Very important concept. So let's talk about that. So if you're going to get from point A to point B, you might actually go off track to point C. That difference is a problem. All right, so the worst scenario is often in companies, you'll see somebody says, okay, we're going to do our annual goal setting, and at the end of the year, it's going to be a performance review. And you get to the end of the year and you go, oh my God, I forgot about that goal. Worst situation possible, right? So you don't want to let it go for too long before seeing how you're doing versus where you want to go. So let's talk about this in another way. Let's say you want to go from point A to point B, and you're checking the progress of where you are on various intervals as mapped out. And again, C would be a problem if you were that far off. But if along the journey you get to a point where you see that there's a deviation, then if you react early enough, you can counteract the deviation before it gets to be a huge problem. So at each milestone, you need to ask yourself, am I on track? If not, what must be done to get back on track? And then, is B still my goal? Because in the real world, things change. And you have to be able to pivot and react. The area that you're trying to get to, B, may in fact change. So again, another reason for interval checks to make sure that you're doing the right thing and you're on track. All right. So when are we going to have time to do all of this? Some answers to follow. So we've talked about goals. Let's talk about managing your time for productivity. All right. Using your time efficiently. Time is money. All right, there's 86,400 seconds in a day. And time is money. It really is in the business world. So we all have the same amount of time available to us. You cannot manage time. It flows, it happens. You can't bank it. You can't stop it. It's a continuum. However, we can manage what we do with that time to be more efficient. All right, so what's really important is you need to spend time thinking about what I'll call a high payoff activity. Okay, these are the things that if you do properly, you will get results. You need to determine, okay, what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? And what are the activities that are actually going to get you the success you're after? Those high payoff activities. And you need to determine what are the low payoff activities, the things that are just taking time away from what's important. You need to reflect on that. All right, so if you've ever heard about the Pareto Principle, 20% achieves 20% of effort achieves 80% of results. Well, that is really important principle, and it applies to productivity because, simply stated, this implies that in a majority of applications, a small number of causes is responsible for a large percentage of effect. So viewed from a personal productivity perspective, roughly 80% of our time is usually spent on trivial or non-productive activities. Therefore, we need to shift our focus to the 20% of productive activities which drive the results that we're after. All right, so you may have seen something like this, but if we go into 4 quadrants, and I'm going to call them across the axis at the top, urgent to not urgent, and then along the bottom to the top, important and not important. If you were to group your activities into this matrix, and there'd be four quadrants, if something's important and urgent, it must be done immediately. Appears to be a high priority, and the operative word is appear, cannot be delayed. It's imperative. Now, the not urgent but important, this is where you get into goal setting and tracking, planning and scheduling, training, communicating, organizing. Now, if you get down to the not important but are urgent, meeting others' priorities, other people and their priorities, low priority items, busy work, procrastination, unrelated to your goals, things that you get drawn into, should be done by others. And then the not urgent, not important, of little or no value, non-productive, waste of time, waste of others' time, irresponsible. Okay, so we'll call this quadrant here reactive. Okay, this one we'll call proactive. This one is deception. And this one is irresponsible. All right, we'll talk more about that in a moment. You absolutely need to stop doing this area, not urgent, not important, the time wasters, the things that really bring little value. Sometimes you need to take a mental break or whatever, and you get into social media and check this, that, and the other. Okay, fine, I get that, but you got to limit the time that you spend in this area if you want to be successful. Now you might think, how could I put a cross line through important, urgent? Well, the problem with a lot of people is that they just react, and you become a firefighter. And what happens is you get drawn into all sorts of things that are urgent. And what happens is you get drawn into what's urgent, but could be unimportant. and there's a blurred line between reactive and deception. This quadrant right here is of deceptions is literally that, because it's urgent, but maybe not so important that you get drawn into, because everything that's urgent becomes a priority, and that's what you have to watch out for. So you need to say yes as much as you can. The 20% that brings the 80% outcome in this quadrant, not urgent, but is important. All the long-term stuff like goal setting and tracking, planning, etc. You want to definitely say no to the deception area and that not get drawn into that. And this is really the recipe for success. So let's talk about to-do lists. I know it can be tough on you. The traditional to-do list is not an effective productivity tool. I'll tell you why. There's a tendency to do the easy tasks to show progress. How many times have you got that long list and you're checking off the easy ones? It can be depressing. They look long, depressing to look at, and they lack prioritization. So the traditional to-do list is not very effective. There are other ways, better ways of handling your prioritization. And let's talk about prioritizations and decisions. You've got paths to take, and you need to determine your priorities. So this comes back to the double wheel of life, the organizational and personal, and tying back to your life's mission and strategic planning and in your goal setting, so that you have a framework for making decisions prior to things happening in your life. So you need a systematic framework for determining daily priorities based on high payoff activities. So what I would suggest is, rather than to-do lists, write out what you need to do every day and try to stick to that. If you're using calendars, whether it's a paper calendar or you're using a calendar that's electronic on your phone or your computer, start each day with determining what do you need to do that day currently to move yourself forward to your successful outcome and achievement of goals. Focus. Okay, dealing with social media, emails, and texting. Multitasking is unproductive. And I'll just stop there for a moment, because studies have shown time and time again that every time you switch your mind from one task to another, you're losing valuable productivity, because you have to rethink where you were before, as opposed to continuing to complete a task, getting it done. So multitasking is unproductive. Tackle similar tasks and planned times of day. Examples, emails. Don't get caught up in reacting to emails as they come in. Pick 2 or 3 times a day to respond to emails, dedicate those times, and don't get drawn into emails as they happen. And turn off email notifications. The worst is to have on-screen notifications. You're in a meeting or whatever, and in comes the message, someone just sent you an email, another one. Very distracting, non-productive. Remove any alert sounds. Okay. Tend to emails in batches and plan times of the day. Turn off cell phone notification sounds. The worst. Okay. So mute them. And sure, you can take a look at your notifications that come in on your cell phone, whatever times of the day that makes sense in your schedule, but don't get caught up into this multitasking disaster. Determine a reasonable response time for texts. Okay, I know that there's a tendency, particularly with newer people in the workforce, younger generations, that expect immediate response. In the workplace, family situations, let people know, hey, I'm not going to respond to a text instantaneously. Is it reasonable to respond in 2 hours? Maybe, but that's for you to decide. I'm just saying that it can be a huge distraction and, again, a multitasking disaster. Deal with personal social media responses at lunch or after work. Okay, working from home, let's talk about that. Find a designated room if available. Make sure there are family agreements for respecting noise levels in the work area. have a proper chair. You know, when you're working from home these days, particularly with COVID and having to work from home, make sure it's got some degree of ergonomics where possible. If you've never done it, I'll give you a big tip here, and whether it's at the workplace or at your home office or at home or wherever you are, if you can set up dual monitors where you have your laptop screen and a separate screen, highly productive. Studies have shown increased productivity that is immense when you get used to dual monitors, because you could have a spreadsheet on one side, emails on the other, et cetera, very much more productivity based when you do that. A separate webcam, if you can set it up. A lot of people use just the laptop webcam, but quite often it's looking up at you and it's not very flattering view. If you really want to set up your home office, get a separate webcam. They're not that expensive, and get built-in light rings, and they can plug into your USB port on your laptop. Use additional task lighting for video calls. You see some people that are in the dark, what have you, and always good to have a little bit of task lighting to light them up and for better clarity. Upload a decent headshot when you're on Zoom or any of the Microsoft Teams, whatever it might be. Put your headshot, nice headshot, in the setup so that people can see who you are when you're not on camera. Dress properly, appropriately for video conferences. When you're at home, and I think that goes back to professionalism. So just a little bit of a tip that some people let their guard down on in that area. If flex hours are required, gain agreement from your manager. Really important, just to communicate. I mean, they need to manage your productivity and the results of the department. So make sure it's well known that if you need to flex your hours a bit, have an agreement. When the day is complete, tend to personal requirements. Achieve balance. Okay, you're going to end at a certain time. It's your time. You need your personal life as well as your business life. And take breaks every hour. Stretch your legs. It's not good to sit there for too long, no more than an hour at any time at your chair. And then hydrate through the day to keep your energy level up. A lot of people don't hydrate, and very important that you do that because it does keep your energy level up. Okay, I'm going to talk about the importance of coaching, another topic. Here's Tiger Woods, and we all hope that his latest situation and the accident he was in, that he'll recover. But over the years, as good as he was coached by his father at a young age, and throughout his entire career, he was coached. Connor McDavid, there's another example. A lot of people think of Connor as the best hockey player in the world. He was coached at a young age, and he is what he is because not only of his athletic ability and his drive to perform and his intense competitive spirit, but he was coached very well. I happen to know this because my nephew played with him when they were younger, and I saw Connor play for a number of years. I saw the type of coaching he was getting. And so 2 examples that even elite athletes need coaching. They cannot see themselves as a coach with a trained eye can. Now, effective coaching contributes to the slight edge. Again, getting back to the slight edge and your success. So where am I going with this? If you have a mentor, you have others that can give you feedback, ask them, what can you do better to improve? Always important. I myself am a coach. I do this for a living. I work with executives and leaders, and I help them to improve their leadership styles. And even the high up executives, owners, VPs, presidents of companies, they need coaching, just like elite athletes. So I just wanted to mention that no matter who you are, ask for feedback. Okay, next steps. We're getting close to the end of the workshop. It's all about choice. Okay, we've gone through what it is to be successful, how to plan your goals, tie it back to your life mission, and how to organize your time effectively. Summary. We should know exactly what we want to accomplish. We need to concentrate on priorities and avoid wasting valuable time on low priority things. SMART goals provide us with focus, a framework to follow, and the self-motivation to ensure we stay on course. So very important to do SMART goals and really lay it out in the way I discussed with you, that have your action items, your means for measurement, intervals for measurement, everything that we talked about, and lay it out properly to stay on task and for self-motivation purposes. The high payoff activities are the tasks that we should be working on at any given time. Again, the 20-80 rule or 80-20 rule. 20% of your activities, generally speaking, result in 80% of the outcome. You need to concentrate on those very important high payoff activities. And if we know what our high payoff activities are, then we need to prioritize our time effectively. So every day, think about what it is you need to do that day to advance yourself towards the goals that you're after. All right, conclusion. If you're short of time and not getting the results you want, it's most likely that you do not have your goals clearly defined. Let's think about that. All right, so I hope this brings everything home for everybody on the call. It's been a great going through some very important concepts of what it is to be successful, plan goals to agree with your life mission and objectives, and how to plan your days to achieve them. So my contact information, Malcolm Gurley, MB BPI Inc. My email's here, my cell phone, my website. If you would like to go to my website, see what I have there for additional help. If anyone would like to get a hold of me for any coaching that you require, feel free. And at this point, we're getting close to the last 15 minutes. I'm going to open it up for questions from the group. So, Julia?